His entire world collapsed in a single night. First, he buried his father. Then, before the dirt on the grave had even settled, his wife walked out on him, only to run straight into the arms of his best friend. She had no idea the broke man she just discarded was hours away from inheriting $500 million, and the revenge that followed, it changed everything. Before we go deeper into this unbelievable twist, tell me in the comments, what would you do if the person who betrayed you found out you became rich the very next day? She looked at him as if he'd merely interrupted a boring conversation, not shattered vows. "Oh, you're back," Melissa said flatly, not even pretending to hide her irritation. Evan stood frozen in the doorway, unable to speak. Derek didn't bother acting guilty. He slid his watch onto his wrist with slow, deliberate confidence, then met Evan's eyes with an arrogance that made the room feel smaller. "Didn't expect you home this early," Derek said casually. Evan swallowed, his throat tightening as grief and betrayal twisted together like thorns. "My father died tonight," he whispered. Melissa blinked once, slowly. Not a flicker of sympathy crossed her face. "And what exactly do you expect from me?" she asked coldly. "Tears? Comfort?" "Evan, I'm exhausted. Exhausted by your small life, your small goals, your small everything." She reached into the nightstand and pulled out a white envelope. She placed it on the bed like she was presenting a prize. "These are the divorce papers. I've been waiting for the right moment to give them to you." Her voice turned sharp, almost gleeful. "I'm done, Evan. You're a nobody, a loser. I refuse to be married to a man with no ambition and no money. Derek offers me security, a future, something you've never been able to give." Derek folded his arms, leaning against the dresser as if he owned the place. "Just face the truth," he added smugly. "She deserves stability. You can't provide that." Evan stepped back, feeling the room tilt beneath his feet. His pulse hammered in his fingertips. Something inside him cracked, grief melting into something colder, sharper. Melissa nudged the papers toward him. "Sign them. We want to move on with our lives. Derek's getting promoted soon. We're building real success, something you were never part of." Evan stared at the woman he once believed would stand beside him forever. Her eyes were empty. No affection, no hesitation, just calculation. Then he looked at Derek, the friend he once trusted like a brother. That trust, now dust. He walked out of the room without a single word. The silence behind him felt louder than a scream. The house he thought was home now felt like a stranger's walls surrounding him. By the time he reached the living room, he realized the pain in his chest wasn't just about losing his father. It was knowing he'd never truly been loved here at all. The next morning, the quiet felt suffocating. Evan hadn't slept. He had merely closed his eyes and waited for dawn. His father's fading breath and Melissa's cruel words replayed endlessly in his mind. He washed his face, letting the cold water sting. Today, he would bury the man who carried him through life with gentle strength. A man who chose silence over burdening his son. Evan didn't bother changing clothes. Grief didn't care how he looked. When he arrived at the funeral home, he froze. People he'd never seen before, men in immaculate suits, women in designer coats, filled the space. Their presence was too powerful, too polished to be random mourners. Their shoes clicked sharply against the floor, a sound that didn't match the modest life he thought his father lived. A man wearing a watch worth more than Evan's car bowed his head at the casket. Another placed a hand on the wood with reverence. Even the funeral staff seemed overwhelmed. "Dad, who were you?" Evan whispered. When the service ended, they approached him one by one. "Your father was remarkable. He believed in you more than anyone. He trusted you with everything." Evan nodded silently, but he didn't understand any of it. After the burial, a man in a gray suit approached him. "Mr. Carter," he said, "I'm Attorney Wallace, your father's lawyer. We need to speak privately." Behind him stood three executives with serious expressions. "Why?" Evan asked, confused. The lawyer gave a knowing smile. Because your father left something behind for you. Something significant. They led him into a private room. Wallace placed a sealed black case on the table, opened it, and revealed a tablet. "This is your father's final recorded message," he said. "He made it 2 weeks ago. He wanted it played only after his burial." Evan's breath hitched. "A message? From him?" "Yes," Wallace replied. He wanted his words preserved without confusion. The lights dimmed as the video began. His father appeared on the screen, alive, composed, sitting behind a mahogany desk Evan had never seen before. His voice was calm, but heavy with truths he'd carried for years. "Evan, my son, if you're watching this, I am gone." Evan gripped the chair, his heart pounding. "There are things I hid from you since your mother passed. I promised her I would keep you safe. Her death wasn't an accident. She died because people wanted me gone. She was driving my car that night. The attack was meant for me." Evan's chest tightened. "When I learned the truth, I knew you would never survive in my world. I stepped away from my position and hid every asset in a trust. I lived quietly to protect you." His father leaned forward. "You always wondered why I lived so modestly. Now you know. A target had been placed on you long before you ever knew it existed." The executives standing in the room kept their eyes lowered, giving Evan the space he needed as another piece of his reality shifted. On the screen, his father continued, voice steady. "Evan, I am the founder and principal owner of Carter Dominion Holdings. Its value exceeds $500 million. And now it's yours." Evan's pulse hammered in his ears. "You may feel unprepared," the message went on. "You may think this responsibility is larger than you. But trust me, son, you were shaped for this. I built this company. I raised you. Now both rest in your hands." His father glanced off camera, addressing the board members gathered around Evan. "Stand with him. Guide him. Honor the transition the same way you once supported me." The camera shifted briefly, revealing the very executives positioned around Evan's chair. Then the video returned, his father's expression weighed by decades of unspoken truth. "Live with caution, not fear," he said. "Move wisely, but don't disappear as I once did. The world will recognize you when you decide. It's time." His tone softened. "Your mother's final plea was simple. Protect our son. She wanted you to grow without danger. I honored her last wish until my final breath. Now, you must honor her by stepping into the life we secured for you." The screen faded to black. Evan didn't move. His hands stayed still, his breath tight, his mind racing. Not with shock, with the weight of a legacy that had just been placed on his shoulders. The room remained still, the truth hanging in the air like a storm that had finally broken. Attorney Wallace waited quietly. The executives stood along the walls, giving Evan a respectful silence. These were men accustomed to power, yet they looked at him with an unfamiliar humility. When Evan finally looked up, his voice cracked slightly. "Why? Didn't he tell me this while he was alive?" Wallace's expression warmed. He believed secrecy was protection, and he trusted you would understand when the right moment arrived. Evan shook his head slowly. "I didn't even recognize most of the people at the funeral." One executive stepped forward. "The man in the charcoal suit, the head of Crestwood Shipping, a longtime ally of your father." Another added, "And the woman in the navy coat? She runs one of the largest contracting firms in Atlanta. Her respect for your father ran deep." David Shaw, head of internal operations, spoke gently. "Your father built powerful relationships, Evan, but he kept you hidden so no one could use you as leverage." Evan exhaled shakily. "I grew up thinking he fixed old heaters and patched cabinets." Wallace nodded. "He did. He maintained the simple life, for your safety. But behind it, he guarded an empire." The words hit hard. Heavy, too big, too real. Wallace slid a folder across the table. "Inside are the trust documents, the board transition letter, and your father's final instructions." Evan didn't open it. Not yet. He stared at it as if touching it would force him into a future he wasn't ready to meet. "What happens next?" he asked quietly. David replied, The board has already been notified. You are the new majority shareholder, and per your father's directive, the incoming CEO. Evan froze. I work at a warehouse. I don't know how to run a corporation. We'll teach you, David said. You won't do this alone. But reassurance didn't lessen the weight. His father's confession, his mother's death, the years of secrecy, it all collided inside him. Wallace placed a hand on the folder. When you're ready, your father instructed you to visit headquarters. He believed seeing the company with your own eyes would help you understand your role. Evan nodded faintly. But a cold realization struck him with sudden clarity. A memory, a puzzle piece locking into place. His mother's accident, his father's forced retreat, the years of hidden sacrifice, the empire built in silence. Every truth reshaped itself into something sharp, something undeniable. Evan rose slowly, the folder pressed to his chest. My father lived his entire life, protecting a secret I never knew, he whispered. Wallace nodded. He protected you, Evan, and now he's given you the power to protect yourself. Evan scanned the room, faces polished, suits perfect, shoes shining under the soft lights. These were people who had walked beside his father while he remained in the dark. Yet now, they were looking to him, respectfully, expectantly. He walked out of the room with steps that felt heavier than gravity. Outside, the rain had cleared, leaving the pavement shining like a mirror. He drove to his father's home, stepped inside. Everything felt different, smaller, quieter. Like the life he once lived had already begun to fade behind him. He entered his father's bedroom, worn shirts, old boots, books with yellowed pages. A world built on the belief that simplicity was safety. He sat on the bed and found a wooden box. Inside, photos of his mother, his father, moments untouched by danger. His eyes stung. He didn't ask for this life, but it was his now. And the world that killed his mother would soon learn exactly who he was. Not the man Melissa mocked, not the man Derek betrayed. He would rise as the son of Richard Carter,